Hello, this is Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, and this is my next character analysis video. This time, Equestria Girls Sunset Shimmer. The Fail Princess, cunning, deceptive, and evilly ambitious. However, there is hope for her yet. Sunset Shimmer is a very interesting character to me, since she is definitely more than she appears. But for this video, I will be discussing only her character as we see it during Equestria Girls. However, even during the first movie, there is a fair amount going on with Sunset Shimmer. Or more precisely, inside her. At first, other than the brief backstory given to us by Princess Celestia, that Sunset Shimmer simply grew impatient with her training and decided to pursue her own path, we really don't know what drives her, other than a obvious pursuit for greater power, which is a pretty evil motivation. Some pony has informed me that these motivations are more fleshed out in the comics, but even so, her primary motivation still appears to be a quest for power. But I think it's more complicated than that. At the end of Equestria Girls, Sunset Shimmer, as Twilight says, reveals to everyone what is in her heart, and this is really the most interesting part in terms of Sunset Shimmer's character in the entire movie. Here, she just simply reveals to everyone what she's thinking, what she's feeling, and shows that there's much more going on than just simply her being a bully or a mean girl. When she confronts the school, she basically says that I deserve this crown and all the power that comes with it, and that's why you will be loyal to me! This pretty much reveals that the main thought that drives her is, I deserve. Remember, kids, this can be a very dangerous thought that can lead to some very dark places, so be wary when you think this. Anyway, like most evil characters, she really doesn't think she's doing anything wrong. She doesn't think of herself as being evil, since after everything she's done and been through, she deserves to rule. And besides, in her mind, it should have been hers to begin with. After all, she was a student of Princess Celestia, and it appears knows things that even Twilight doesn't know about, and has been able to rule Canterlot High without even needing magic. She simply thinks that she can and deserves to be a princess. Of course, she is very, very wrong. This was, after all, one of the primary lessons of Equestria Girls, that leaders don't lead by forcing people to bow before them, but rather to inspire others to stand with them. This is why I think Sunset Shimmer was redeemed so easily at the end, since she finally learns this lesson, unfortunately the hard way, after being beaten so badly by the magic of friendship, when she says, I didn't know there was another way. She's realized how wrong she's been all this time, and because just a moment ago, she had all the power she could ever imagine, and it was taken away from her by 6 friends that barely knew each other, by simply being there for each other. Does any pony feel that this is familiar somehow? I also love it when she says, what is happening? Because I think she does understand what is happening, especially in the sense of how the elements of harmony work and things like that, but she doesn't understand why it's happening. It's like, how could the Main Six summon this kind of power against me? How could they have defeated my great plans? And how could I have all this power and still lose? No! In this moment, she doesn't understand. But in the next, she does. I think simply because this is the first time that she's ever tried to rely on something or someone other than herself. I certainly identify with Sunset Shimmer in that she's a loner who probably didn't have a lot of friends, and since, as she says, she doesn't know the first thing about friendship. Sadly, these are things that I can unfortunately identify with, and I think a lot of other people can probably identify with as well. However, the good news is, there is hope for her yet, since she is willing to learn, and there's someone there willing to teach her. Sunset Shimmer may have failed as a princess, but she's not an entirely evil character, since while her motivations are very self-serving and hurtful and evil at times, but as she says, she is not a monster. While a lot of her actions are very hurtful, including attempting to vaporize Twilight, I still don't think it was really her goal or her desire to hurt others. But I think she knew in order to take over Equestria, some ponies would have to be dealt with. And certainly when she attempts to kill Twilight, I think that's primarily what she's trying to do. She's trying to deal with a clear, well, and present threat that she knows she has to deal with, because Twilight is just not going to let her win. Good for you, Twilight. However, the moment where she lets Spike go and how she repeatedly says, "I'm sorry it has to be this way," shows that hurting others is not exactly what is in her heart and her goal, but she believes in order to get what is rightfully hers, someone is gonna have to get hurt. Further example of this is I don't think she wants to invade Equestria so she can take revenge against Celestia. She wants to rule Equestria because she thinks she deserves to. And if she had succeeded in taking over Equestria, probably would have imprisoned the other princesses rather than having them executed. But she might have decided that they had to be dealt with too. But because of her failure as a princess, there's a fair amount of conflict and disappointment going on inside her, which we see briefly when Twilight calls her bluff at destroying the portal, and we see her jealousy and, in a way, pain at Twilight and the main six prevailing over her. Oh dear. I have a saying that the only thing worse than failing is seeing someone else succeed at the thing you failed at. And I'm sure this is what Sunset Shimmer is feeling in that moment, and explains why the next thing she says is, "Yeah, she's so special," and then throws her cutting to the winds and takes a slightly more direct approach. Oh dear. Twilight really touched a nerve on that one. One interesting thing I noticed were the pictures on Principal Celestia's wall. It shows how Sunset Shimmer over time became, well, evil. I think I'd rather burn my wall down than hang a picture like that on it. Ooh. She appears to start off almost innocent, but then she, well, becomes completely evil and self-centered with every picture. I would almost like to say that the human world, in a way, corrupted her over time. But most likely she was this way when she left Equestria, and without the guidance of a good mentor like Princess Celestia, her selfishness could only grow until it consumed her. But again, the good news is, despite all of this, Sunset Shimmer does learn the error of her ways, and like a lot of the other villains, sees how powerful and worthwhile friendship can be, and decides to turn away from the dark path and go down a far brighter one. Good for you, Sunset Shimmer. Ugh. Well, that was kind of heavy, but now that we've seen most of the core of Sunset Shimmer, let's briefly touch upon some of her other characteristics. Being a former student of Princess Celestia, she's clearly very intelligent and knows a lot about magic, and apparently things that even Twilight doesn't know. She's also very deceitful and cunning, although she probably could use some acting lessons. I don't think that Vice Principal Luna was very convinced by her act. Despite this, she was able to instill fear throughout an entire high school, and effectively ruling it with an iron fist. Well, sort of anyway, since all it took to take away that power was a spark. Still, I really like Sunset Shimmer. Despite having some problems with her plans, I still think that she's a fairly intelligent character and was able to stay on top of things for the most part. Even when her plans started going wrong, she was able to change her plans accordingly. However, I think I will be leaving that here for now, since I want to save those arguments for another video. So while Sunset Shimmer may have been mostly the typical high school bully / mean girl, I still really like her character since she clearly is very intelligent and cunning and only had to resort to direct physical violence when she absolutely had to. Anyone who could effectively rule an entire school like this, with just herself and 2 flunkies, in a way is pretty cool to me. Also, her failures as a princess and as a friend make her a very interesting and, in some ways, relatable character, and it makes me glad that despite everything, there's hope for her yet. So, I look forward to seeing more of Sunset Shimmer and seeing where this path of friendship will take her. So that is the end of my video on Equestria Girls, Sunset Shimmer. This is Blue Star. Stay strong and pony on. Blue Star out.